Horror movies are great, oftentimes terrifying, but still great. However, there's nothing we love seeing more than, based on a true story, pop up before the film begins. It means that we're about to be petrified by something that was pulled from reality. Something that could happen to anyone, even me, maybe even you. So today on Top 10 Beyond the Screen, I'm going to be counting down our list of the top 10 scary movie moments that happened in real life. Let's jump in. In at 10, The Exorcism of Emily Rose. When I first watched this film, I couldn't sleep for a week. It traumatized me, mostly due to the scene where Emily is contorted on the bedroom floor. Horrifying. Anyway, this exorcism film is based on the very real case of Annalise Michel, who was reportedly possessed by demons so strong that her exorcism took around a year to accomplish. Now, Annalise was initially diagnosed with epileptic psychosis and had a history of psychiatric treatment, which was overall not effective. By the time she was 20 years old, she had become intolerant to various religious objects and began to hear voices. After taking psychiatric medications for 5 years, Annalise and her family appealed to the Catholic Church, resulting in 2 priests from the local bishop performing an exorcism. Now, during this time, Annalise stopped eating food and died due to malnourishment and dehydration. Her parents and the 2 Roman Catholic priests were found guilty of negligent homicide and were sentenced to 6 months in jail as well as a fine. Coming in at 9, Deliver Us from Evil. The film followed veteran member of a South Bronx precinct, Ralph SARCHIE, who had seen more than his share of dark and terrifying events, to the point that they may have begun to poison his soul. This is pushed to the limits when he and his partner investigate a particularly bizarre incident. Now, the film was an adaptation of the book Beware the Night, written by the real Ralph SARCHIE, with it detailing his experiences as an NYPD cop and demonologist. In the book, he discloses the first time his investigation into true crimes and inhuman evil, with himself and his partner being eyewitnesses to the reality of demonic possession. In at 8, Fire in the Sky. Fire in the Sky is set in 1975 and follows a group of 5 men who are driving home after working in a forest when they see a mysterious light. Intrigued, one of the men, Travis Walton, leaves the truck, only to be sucked up by a flying saucer. Crazy, right? Can't possibly be true. Well, this movie is supposedly based on a very true story. The movie itself is based on the book The Walton Experience by Travis Walton. In the book, Walton tells of how he was abducted by a UFO on November 5th, 1975, while he was working in the Apache National Forest near Snowflake, Arizona. Walton reappeared after a 5-day search, during which time he claimed he was abducted by a UFO and was held in a hospital-like room, being observed by 3 short, bald creatures. He also claimed that he fought with them until a human wearing a helmet led Walton to another room where he blacked out as 3 other humans put a clear plastic mask over his face. Walton claims he remembers nothing else other than walking along a highway with the flying saucer departing above him. Very creepy. Coming in at number 7, The Haunting in Connecticut. Now, this film itself follows a family who move into an old home when the eldest child gets diagnosed with cancer. However, they very quickly learn that all is not well with the house. Now, the plot of this movie is not new. We've seen it countless times in movies like The Amityville Horror and The Conjuring. However, what makes this movie so much scarier is the true story it is based on. Now, the true story is reportedly based on the Snedeker family of Connecticut in 1986, who, according to Ed and Lorraine Warren, moved into a former funeral home where morticians regularly practiced necromancy, and that there were powerful forces at work that were ultimately cured by an exorcism. In at number 6, Curse of the Zodiac. This film is pretty self-explanatory. Released in 2007, it is inspired by the true story of the hunt for the notorious serial killer known as the Zodiac, who claimed responsibility for the still unsolved murders. Now, Zodiac Killer is a pseudonym given to an unidentified serial killer who operated in Northern California from the 1960s to the early 70s. Now, although the Zodiac claimed to have committed 37 murders in letters to newspapers, investigators agree on only 7 confirmed victims, 2 of whom survived. To this day, no one knows who the killer is. All we have are the cryptic letters he sent to the police and journalists. In at 5, Child's Play. For those who don't know, Child's Play was released in 1988 and tells the story of a serial killer whose soul possesses a toy doll and wreaks havoc. Chucky. Now, you may be surprised to learn that there is actually a true story that inspired the events of this movie. In 1909, Key West, Florida, painter and author Robert Eugene Otto made the crazy claim that one of his servants placed a voodoo curse on one of his childhood toys. Robert the doll. It was believed that the doll would freely roam around the Otto home, knock furniture over, and even hold conversations with Otto himself. Now the doll became so out of control that Otto was forced to lock the doll in the attic until his death in 1974, up until the new owners moved in. The new family also made claims of strange activities occurring in the home connected to the doll. As of now, Robert the doll is on display at the Key West 4 East Martello Museum. Coming in at 4, The Strangers. The Strangers is an absolutely terrifying movie, and almost everyone's worst nightmare. Strangers breaking into your home, but not to rob you, but to torture and kill you. Now, according to reports, the director of the movie drew inspiration from the murders by notorious serial killer Charles Manson, as well as a series of events that took place near his childhood home. I quote, "As a kid, I lived in a house on a street in the middle of nowhere. One night, while our parents were out, somebody knocked on the front door and my little sister answered it. At the door were some people asking for somebody who didn't live there. We later found out that these people were knocking on doors in the area, and if no one was home, breaking into the house." That is absolutely terrifying. Lock your doors, people. In at 3, The Girl Next Door. Now, this film is tough to swallow. Fun fact, there were actually 2 movies made about this specific case, the aforementioned The Girl Next Door and the American-made film An American Crime, starring Ellen Page and Catherine Keener. Now, The Girl Next Door tells the story of an aunt who tortures and abuses her niece, and neighbors fail to alert the authorities. This film is absolutely brutal and disgusting, but what makes it worse was that it was inspired by true events. Based on Jack Ketchum's novel of the same name, the film is based on the murder of Sylvia Likens, a 16-year-old girl from Indiana. Sylvia and her sister Jenny were left in the care of Gertrude Banaszewski, a family friend of her parents who had left town as traveling carnival workers. Gertrude, along with a few neighborhood kids, locked Sylvia in the basement where they tortured and abused her, resulting in the young girl suffering a brain hemorrhage and malnutrition, and in turn passing away. In at 2, The Dentist. The Dentist follows Dr. Alan Feinstein, a rich and successful Beverly Hills dentist. However, there's one problem. He's insane and kills his patients. Worse still, this is based on an entirely true story. Dr. Glennon Engelman was a sociopathic dentist and violent hitman who served as inspiration for the movie. Engelman's murder spree began in 1958 when he shot James Bullock, the new husband of his ex-wife. His ex then received $64,000 in life insurance, which of course left investigators incredibly suspicious of Glennon. His next known killing took place in 1963. Engelman's business associate was killed after getting blown up by dynamite on a site where Engelman owned a drag strip. And then, in 1977, after he murdered the Guswell family, he had an affair with Barbara Guswell Boyle before he sent her off to marry someone else for insurance money. Crazy stuff. And finally, coming in at number 1, The Exorcist. At this point we all know the story of The Exorcist. 2 Catholic priests perform an exorcism on a young girl, Reagan, who is possessed by the devil. Now, The Exorcist is actually inspired by a 1949 article in the Washington Post, which inspired author and screenwriter William Peter Blatty to write his novel. In the article it read, "Priest frees Mount Rainier boy reported held in devil's grip." Now, the article was about priests William S. Bowden, Edward Hughes, Raymond J. Bishop, and Walter H. Halloran, who all participated in the rite of exorcism on a young boy with the pseudonym Roland Doe. Now, according to the priests, they reported that the boy was speaking in tongues and that his bed was shaking and hovering. This specific exorcism was one of the 3 officially sanctioned by the Catholic Church in the United States at the time. Director of The Exorcist William Friedkin stated, I quote, "Maybe one day they'll discover the cause of what happened to that young man, but back then it was only curable by an exorcism." Spooky stuff. Well, there we have it. Do you guys agree with our list? Were there any scary real-life movie moments that we missed? Leave us all your thoughts and feelings in the comments down below. If you haven't already, be sure to give this video a big thumbs up, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss another Beyond the Screen vid. And until next time, see you later.